Hello everyone and welcome to this new tutorial. In this video we will see how to design a quiz app in Nowa. Let's start by designing the first screen, where we see the list of quizzes. Let's start with an empty screen. From the details panel we add an app bar to this screen. Now we click on the edit button and we add the background color. On the title, let's click on the widget and let's select an image that will replace the text. Here we can upload the logo of our app. Let's adjust the size of the image to make the logo be more visible and also change the fit to be contain. Now let's select the screen and change its layout to be a column. Now we add the tab view widget and we change the sizing to be expand, both for the width and the height. Now we select the tabs and we add a container wrapper. We use this container to add the background color and we select the same one that we used for the app bar. Now let's select again the tabs, and from here we can modify them. For example, we can change the color of the indicator. And we can also customize the label styles. Now we add another tab and we give a name to each one of them. One with all the quizzes, one with the completed ones, and one with the to-do. Now we design the component that shows the quiz. So we start by adding an image and let's make it smaller. Here we can upload an icon that indicates this quiz. Now we add a padding wrapper to this image and also a container wrapper. Let's pick a white color for the container wrapper to give it a background. And now we adjust the padding values. Let's also add some border radius to the container. I also adjust the size of the image a little bit to make it a bit bigger. And now I add the text widget. Here I write the name of the quiz. I also change the font. And adjust the size. Now I duplicate this text and change it with another font and make it smaller, and here I write the number of questions inside this quiz. Now I select these two text widgets and I group them in a column. Now I select everything and I group it in a row and change the spacing. Let's add another children to this row and we pick a text widget. In this text widget we write score and make it a bit smaller. And also pick the font we used before. Now we duplicate this widget, and here we write the score number. Now I select these two text widgets that I just added, and I group them in a row, and I adjust the spacing between them. And also change the sizing to be auto. Now I add another children, and I replace it with an icon widget. I select a check icon. I make it a bit smaller. And I change the color to be green. Now I select the score text and the icon and group them in a row and change the spacing. And also the sizing to be auto. Now I select the quiz title and the quiz icon and also group them in a row. Now I change the spacing to the entire row to be between. So now the row is responsive. I add a padding wrapper to the row and also a material wrapper. I change the sizing to be auto for the height. And I use the material wrapper to add a background color to this card and also add some elevation. And let's also add a border radius. Now I select this card that we just created and I turn it into a component. I give it a name. And now I duplicate it a couple of times. I select the copies and I group them in a column. I change the spacing and also the sizing to be auto. I also turn this column into a component. And now I click on the tab content and I replace the widget with the component that we just created with a list of quizzes. Now I can select the main component and I can modify it. For example, I can adjust the sizing of the cards to be expand so it will fill the screen. And I also add a padding wrapper to add some spacing in between the cards and the edge of the screen. I also now add more children to this list. And now I select all of them and I want to change the height of this card to make it a bit bigger. Now I can keep modifying also the main component with the card, and these changes will be applied through the entire screen. Now we select the image icon that we created before in the main component and we change it to be a URL image instead of an asset. And now we can create parameters for some of the children of this component. Let's create one for the title of the quiz and also one for the image. and one for the background color. Now we can go in the variables panel and we can rename these variables and also change the default values. Now I can select each one of the copies of the component inside the column that we created before. And in the details panel, I can easily modify the values of this variable to make the cards look different and show different quizzes. Now let's create the second screen that shows one question from the quiz. Let's start with an empty screen and let's add an up bar. Let's match the style of the up bar with the one that we created before. And then let's add a leading action. Let's pick an icon button. Let's change it to be an arrow, and let's also change the color to be white. Now we add another action, and here instead we select the text widget, and here we write the number of questions inside the quiz. Let's also change the font and the color. We also add a padding wrapper to add some spacing in between the text and the edge of the screen. Now we create a timer component. We start by adding a text widget, and here we write the time. Let's add now an icon, and we pick like a clock icon. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And now we select the icon and the text we just created and put them in a row. We can adjust the spacing, and also let's make the sizing auto. Let's add now a padding wrapper and a container wrapper. Let's make the background color of this container to be white, and let's now adjust the padding. And also let's add some border radius to the container. I now modify the color of the text and also the color of the icon. Now I select this timer that we just created and let's turn it into a component. Now on the up bar, we can replace the title with this component that we just created. And again, we can keep modifying it. Now let's add a text widget and write the name of the quiz. And let's add an image widget, and here we add the icon of the quiz. Let's make it smaller. Now we select both of them and put them in a row. Let's adjust the spacing. And let's add a padding wrapper. And we can adjust the padding. And now we add a container wrapper. Let's change the color of the container and also the border radius. Now we drag this row that we just created inside the screen. We group it again in a row. So now we can set the layout of the screen to be a column. And let's select the group we just created and let's change the width to be expand and also the alignment to be in the center. Now let's design the section with the image and the question. Let's add a container. To this container, we add the link of an image for the question. And we add some border radius. And also a border. Let's make it very light. Now we add a text widget. And here we write the question. Let's customize it. Let's change the font and the size. And of course, we change the width and the height to be auto. Now we select both of them and let's group them in a column. Let's change the height and width to be auto. And now we add a padding wrapper and a container wrapper. Let's drag this inside the screen. Let's change the width to be expand. Now we add another padding wrapper. This time will be external to the container, and we can add some padding on the left and the right. And we can decide what height we want this section to be. Now, from the container details panel, we can modify this. For example, I add some radius and also a different background color and a different color for the border. Now we design the card with the answers. Let's start with a text widget. And we write the letter A. Let's change this to be auto. And let's modify the style of the text as we want to match the rest of the design. Now let's duplicate this text and let's write the first option. Now we add an icon widget. And we change it to be like an empty circle. Let's make it smaller. Now we select everything and let's group them in a row. Let's change the spacing to be in between. And now we add a padding wrapper and a container wrapper. Let's change the border radius and also the color of the background of the container. Let's adjust the padding as we prefer. And I will also change the color of the circle icon to be like a lighter gray. And also the color of the letter that indicates the option to be like a lighter blue. Now we turn this row in a component. And now we want to duplicate it a couple of times. And let's group these copies in a column. We adjust the spacing. And we can add more copies inside the column. Now we drag the column inside the screen. And let's change the sizing to be expand. Now we can select the rows inside this column, and we can also change them to be expand, and we add the padding wrapper. Let's adjust the padding to add some space between the edge of the screen and also the top. Now we'll also select them again and change the height to be a little bit taller. Now I select the component that I created before, and I can keep modifying it as I want. Now from the main component, we can add parameters to these widgets. Let's add one for the option, and let's add one also for the letter. So now we can go to the copies inside the screen, and we can change the value of these parameters to show different options. Now let's design the screen at the end of the quiz. Let's pick a new screen and let's change the background color to be something like the light blue that we used before, but a little bit darker. And now we add a text widget and we write quiz completed. Let's change the font and the size. Now we duplicate this text widget, and here we write your score. Let's make it smaller. And let's center it in the screen. Now we duplicate one of the text widgets outside the screen, and here we write the score percentage. Now let's select a circular progress indicator widget, and we can change the value to match the score value that we wrote before. Let's change the size of this widget and also the width of the stroke to be bigger. And now we can center the score that we wrote before. And we can group these two widgets together. And we can put them inside the screen. Now let's select the circular indicator and we can change the colors to match the rest of the design. Now we duplicate the text widget again, and here we write the number of questions that were correct. Let's also add an icon widget, and again let's pick like a check icon. And let's make it green. Let's select this text and the icon and put them in a row. And we can adjust the spacing value between them and also the sizing options to be auto. Now we select the main screen and change its layout to be a column. Now we select the group with the circular progress indicator and the score percentage, and we group it again and put it in a row. And we can adjust the size of this row. And let's align the content in the center. Now let's select the two text widgets at the top of the screen and we also group them to be in a column. Let's reorganize the widgets, and now we change the width to be expand and we can adjust the spacing value. We also add the padding wrapper, so we can add some padding at the top. And let's make sure that the height of this column is set to be auto. Let's also change the row that we created before with the number of correct questions to be expand. Now we create the two buttons at the bottom of the screen and we start by adding a text widget. And here we write return to home. Let's change the font and the size. We also add an icon widget. We put it next to the text. And we change the icon to be a home icon. Let's turn this into a row. And let's change the spacing value. And also the sizing to be auto. Now we add a padding wrapper and a material wrapper. We add the border radius to the material wrapper to make the edges round, and now we drag this inside the screen. Here we can keep modifying it. For example, let's add some elevation, and let's also change the color of the icon to match the rest of the design. Now we duplicate this button that we just created. And we change the text to be repeat quiz. And we also change the icon. Now to make this text a secondary button, we want to change some of the colors. For example, we make the background of the material wrapper to be the same one as the background of the screen. And we add a border to this material wrapper, we make it white. Now we also change the color of the icon to be white and also the color of the text to be white. Now we select both these two buttons and we group them in a column, and we change the width of the column to be expand, and we also add the padding wrapper. Let's add some padding at the top and also at the bottom. Now we select the smaller button and we make sure that it's the same size of the bigger one, and we make the content to be in the center. And we also change the spacing value between them. Now let's change the order of the buttons, so the primary one is at the top. Now we add some final touches to the design. Let's add a linear progress indicator to the second screen. We change the value of the indicator, and let's also add some radius. Now we group this indicator and we add some padding. Let's drag this indicator inside the second screen at the top, below the hub bar. And we change the width to be expand. Now from the details panel we can customize it to match the rest of the design. So let's change the colors. We can also adjust the padding as we prefer. And let's also change the sizing of the height to be auto. Now let's add some Rive animations inside the screens. Let's add the Rive widget and let's upload a Rive animation file. We add it inside the second screen at the bottom. We add the padding wrapper around the animation and we change the width to be expand. And we can also adjust the padding as we prefer. Let's also add the Rive animation widget to the third screen. Let's upload the same animation. You can also pick a different one if you prefer. And let's add it inside the first column of the screen. Let's reorganize the elements to have the animation at the top. And we also change the padding. Now, as a final touch, we need to also add to the rest of the tabs the same column component that we created before with the list of quizzes. Amazing! Now we just learned how to create the design of a quiz app, but of course this is just the design part. But stay tuned because soon we will release a video where we'll teach you how to make this app work with the logic, and you can have a full complete quiz app. Thank you for watching this video and see you in the next tutorial.